High in the mountains of northern New Mexico, between Santa Fe and Taos, lies a most unique land. These are the villages held in the embrace of La Jicarita Mountain, small enclaves settled by Pueblo Indians and Spanish and Mexican explorers centuries ago. Today, the descendants of settlers, explorers, and indigenous people of southern Taos County live here in harmony with the traditions and customs passed down from generation to generation. A proud people whose roots are deep in the land they love and have a foothold in both the modern world and the history of their rich culture and heritage. These are the people of the Rio Lucio, Chamizal, and many other small villages surrounding Peñasco, New Mexico.
Thank you, Kaori. Last time I was here, standing in front Friday, I was doing a presentation on our military family, and so I don't want to get too much into that again. But so I'm kind of focused today on our family, and then a little bit on my dad when he was in Wyoming. I got a lot of photos there that you guys might be interested in seeing when he was working as a sheep herder in Wyoming, like in the 50s. And believe it or not, there's some color photos later on. Oh, that was me. That's my grandfather when he was young. Anyway, just forgive me. I am not an accomplished speaker, presenter, but I'll do the best I can, okay? And hopefully my ancestors, my parents will not be too embarrassed of me. So first of all, I was born here in Peñasco in 1951. The family home is right across the street, across the river from here. That's the family home, and it's abandoned now. The house is not being lived in. The house was sold by my family like in the 60s, and then the family that took that over lost the house and the property, so it was picked up by the Indians at the reservation here, and they've never done anything with the land. It's been sitting there idle. So my mom and dad were born. My mom was born in Peñasco. My father was born in Llano de San Juan. I'm sorry, he was born in El Valle. And that was back in 1911 for my father, 1914 for my mother. They're long gone now. Well, my mother actually died last year. My father died back in 92. Let's see. So I'd like to kind of dedicate these words that I'm saying to my parents and the sacrifices that they made for us family. A lot of my uncles on the Fresquez side, which some of them are listed in the military table back there, they're kind of the ones that influenced me the most because my father, he died so young. My grandfather, his name was Leopoldo Trujillo, which is the big portrait on this end, the first one. He died in 1918 during the influenza epidemic that hit here in Taos County. Here in Taos County at that time, it took about 600 residents from Taos County back in 1918. He was one of them. In fact, they say that they buried him so quick that there wasn't really much of a funeral. You know, it's just they didn't want no one else to contract influenza, so a lot of people were afraid to attend these funerals at that time. So he left pretty early, left my mom and my tia Carolina kind of very young. She was 4, he was 8 years old when he died. My grandmother, Matilde Ortega, she remarried after my grandfather passed away, and she married a guy named Ramon Muniz, and they had one son with my grandmother, Ramon Muniz, and he's one of the decorated veterans I have in the back also. He's my dad's half-brother. So most of the information that I have that goes back any further than my grandparents was compiled by Alberto Vidarre, which is my sister-in-law, my sister's husband's brother. And he did us a big favor by doing that because he spent countless hours doing research, on all the LDS microfilm rolls that are in the libraries all over. And he compiled a really nice genealogy that stretches back on the Trujillo side all the way to the 1600s. So it's quite far. On the Fresquez side, also into the 1700s, but we have a lot of gaps in the lineage there, so we're not sure. But what I did want to mention was on the Ortega side, which is really interesting because about, let's say, 200 years ago, Nicolás Ortega had two sons, and his two sons eventually led down two different separate paths back to my grandparents, Ortega on both sides. My grandma's side, on both my grandma's side, the Ortegas came back in, so very strong Ortega lineage in our family also. So those are the three main lines in our family, the Fresquez, the Trujillo, the Fresquez, and the Ortega side, both coming in two different directions. These pictures that you're seeing behind me are just various old family photos that I dug up out of my mom's archive, Patequilla, that she used to keep all these photos and albums and stuff. These kids growing up outside the homes out here. This is Wyoming, my grandfather and Mr. Roybal. These are the Vigiles right here. These are also relatives. All I can tell you is that in our family history, you have all these families that were originally here that came into New Mexico in the early days. We're related through them at some point, everybody. The Roybals, the Vigiles, the Chacones, I bet you, I wouldn't be surprised, Marduqueo. But, it's just, you're talking about 400 years of history, and you're talking about families that came in early, and they went in different directions here in New Mexico. Some of them went up to San Luis, Colorado. That's why you have people that have the same name as you from up there, because they all came from the same stock of people, basically, that settled in Santa Cruz de la Cañada, that settled in Chimayo, coming up here, Truchas, Trampas, Espanol, all over this area. So whenever somebody says, well, we might be related, it's more than likely you probably are, So a picture of my brother Arnold when he was a student here. These are pictures in Lark, actually. I better get to that right now. In 1955, my mom and dad left this house that they lived in here and loaded us kids up into the back of this pickup truck, basically with barandales, and not all our possessions wouldn't fit, but all us kids, and took off to Utah, where my dad had gained employment at one of the mines up there outside of Bingham Canyon. The little town was called Lark, Utah, and it was a lead zinc gold mine, and they kind of mined underground. Very dangerous work, but my dad ended up working there about 17 years, where he was involved in several cave-ins, dangerous work. He broke his pelvis, was in the hospital for 6 months during one of those situations. So, but we as kids grew up, interestingly enough, right away. I was only 4 years old. I was that little guy next to the wagon. This is my Uncle Sam. My mom and the kid, when we were kids, I'm the baby there in her arms. My grandfather and my oldest brother Arnold. My grandfather, my Tio Ross, Tia Maria, his wife. Arnold and Leo, my two oldest brothers. That's my grandpa Leopoldo Trujillo. And again, us kids, before they loaded us up on the truck and took us to Utah, that's about the age we were right there. In fact, there's the truck right there. It's like, I tell everybody, it's like the Beverly Hillbillies, I think we even had the chair in the back there, just like Granny. But it wasn't a bad life over in Lark, we were up in the mountains there in the mining town. We had a lot of freedom as kids to run around and do whatever we wanted to do. So we grew up outside playing, and then all the other kids in the community were from other families from all over the country, all over the world. We had immigrant kids, Greeks, Italians, you name it, Yugoslavian. that we grew up with over there in Lark. The point was that when we went there, us younger kids didn't have it so bad because we immediately got into the English. I was 4 years old, kindergarten, you know. My older brothers who spoke Spanish here in Peñasco and knew nothing but Spanish, they had a rough time over there because they were punished for speaking Spanish in Utah. And so they didn't do so hot, you know, and actually I think both my older brothers didn't even graduate from high school. I think they dropped out like almost like a year apart. So they immediately went to work. One of my older brothers got married at 19 and he has a big family up there in Utah, outside of Salt Lake City there. But that's kind of give you a snapshot of what life in Utah was for us there. It wasn't bad. We met a lot of people. We had a lot of fun. And every summer, my mom and dad would load us up back on the new pickup truck, whichever one that was over the years, and come back here to Peñasco for 2 weeks, where we would basically open up the old house, and my dad would put us to work for 3 weeks on his vacation over here, cleaning whatever, ditches, yerbas, jaras, whatever it took, you know. And then we'd go back to Utah for another year and come back the following year. That was our vacation. That was our family vacation, by the way. It was. So, let's see. My mom and dad were married in 1938 here in Peñasco. There's a photograph on display over there that shows them on their wedding day. My mom was a school teacher here in El Valle, actually. She taught school like Laura Ingalls on Little House on the Prairie. She had a one-room schoolhouse, and she taught grades 1 through 8. And a lot of them are already gone, but the people in El Valle, they remember my mom, you know. And one of them would relate a story. Mr. Montoya from El Valle relayed a story to me. He used to say, how did she say? Your mom was pretty strict with us. She made me go down to the rio and get a jara so I could bring it back to her and she could hit me with it. So she was a type of woman that insisted on, you know, strict behavior, you might say, in school. But she only did that for a few years before she met my dad. And of course, when she met my dad and started having kids, she couldn't teach anymore. She just wasn't her interest, I suppose. She didn't do that anymore. But she had 9 children altogether, starting in 1930. My brother was born in 1939, my brother Arnold, the oldest, and 9 kids later, you know, she had her hands full. She had her hands full. But she received her certificate over here from Highlands University at that time. At that time, all you needed was a teaching certificate to teach. But she loved Little House on the Prairie as being her favorite TV show, by the way. See, these are pictures of Henry and Roy, my younger brothers, in Utah. That's in Peñasco. That's the family home right there that we still live in today, or the family still lives in. My dad, my mom, us kids when we were little. That's us camping in Utah, in Wyoming. In the early days, we used to go a lot there. But my mom and my grandfather, his mom in Sevilla, Spain, when we went on a family trip over there years ago. That's in Madrid right there, the main Plaza del Sol. My brother Arnold with his cowboy hat. He was the only one that we ever saw in Spain that had a cowboy hat, actually. One time we were in the Alhambra, which is in Granada, and all these kids just ran up to him. They thought he was a movie star and wanted his autograph because he had this cowboy hat on. So he loved it, of course. He loved the attention by all these kids. So we have some good memories. We traveled a lot with my mom. She was 99 when she died. She loved to travel, just like me. And she's pretty much all over the world, you know. I mean, she was in Europe and Italy, Spain, Holy Land, down south, Argentina. She traveled with us every chance she got until she got too old where she just could not walk that well anymore. But and my dad, unfortunately, he just went to Italy and he went to go visit Padre Pio's hometown. He was a big Padre Pio fan, very religious man. He was a penitente here in Peñasco for many, many years, over here at the Morada in Peñasco. So he was a quiet, spiritual individual. So let me see. One thing I wanted to kind of emphasize as far as relatives is that Carl Sagan once wrote something about, I won't be able to quote it exactly, but we're all primos. We're all related. If you go back far enough to generations back, you'll find that these family ties come together at some point again and again. He made the calculation that if you have 2 grandparents, 4 great-grandparents, 8 great-great-grandparents, and you keep going back like that, you know, there wasn't that many people born on this earth. It adds up to trillions, quintillions of people on this earth. So how could that happen? How could that be? Well, it's because these same individuals married other individuals within within these family lines, and that's why that's possible. So he used to say we are all indeed relatives, cousins on this planet. And now that they're starting to come out with DNA testing, that is exactly what's happening. If you've ever had your DNA tested, you will find out that they'll give you percentages of ethnicities that are in your DNA. And those ethnicities could be, like, I'm going to give you an example of my DNA ethnicity, just to give you an idea, because I've already told you about my family a little bit. Now I'm going to tell you about who I am. And you get this little pie chart, which is tiny, but it'll give you percentages. It costs about $100 through Ancestry.com. And my ethnicity percentages are interesting. I have a high 37% Native American component, which never surprised me. I always knew that it was about that. A 19% Iberian Peninsula, which is Spain and Portugal. 17% Italy and Greece. And that comes from the Gregos. If you look at my family tree over there, right at the very top, Juan Grego came from Greece. So that carries through to the Gregos who married Trujillos all the way down, and you have me way down here on this end. And then I have like these other small percentages of other parts of the world. So I'm a real mutt, you know what I mean? But that's okay. It's that mixture that gives us strength. It gives us diversity. It keeps us from having too many mutations, so you don't have a lot of stuff going on, you know. So it's okay to have to be a diverse individual, and that just means you're going to pass it on to your kids, your grandkids, and it's actually better for them, I think. It's in my opinion. So I have 1% Jewish, which is very interesting to me. I thought it was maybe higher, but it's not. 4% Middle Eastern, 4% Caucasus region in Central Asia. And all that's supposed to add up to 100%, by the way. But, and it does. But if any of you are interested, talk to me. I've done my wife, I've done my sister, my uncle My mom's brother did him, and I'm planning to do my aunt Edumenia. That would be about the closest as I could come to my mother's DNA, would be my aunt, who's still living today. But I hope that part was kind of interesting. It was to me, and I'm still interested in it. So can we switch to let's switch to my dad in Wyoming. I wanted to share with you some of the photos that my dad took in Wyoming while he was sheep herding in the 50s. This is my dad on the right and a friend of his on the left. His two dogs that he always talked about. That's my dad on horseback in Wyoming. Believe it or not, they actually had color film in the 50s. And when I found these pictures kind of stashed away in my mom's archive, I pulled them out and scanned them. But you know, he loved the outdoors. That's his wagon there on the sheep herding plain, you know, that they slept in for months and years at a time, whatever. The open plains of Wyoming. That's my brother Arnold when he was 16 years old. They're up there with my dad. So the family has, what can I say, as far as sheep herding, that was a big part of how my dad earned a living. He'd be gone for long periods of time. My mom would stay at home here and with the crops and the animals. That's the way the kids survived. You know, my mom was one tough lady, let me tell you. My grandmother was extremely tough. All the women in my family are just amazing, strong women, you know. It's I'm so proud of them. That's because they get missed a lot of times. They get forgotten. Men talk about men, their fathers or grandfathers, but what about the grandmothers? What about the mothers, the aunts? I don't have enough time to talk about all of them right here today, but let me tell you, they are right here in my heart. And in talking about them today, my ancestors, I think one other speaker was saying to me earlier, was saying yesterday that they're right here. They really are. They're floating around here like just kind of, they're never gone completely. As long as you remember them, they're in your heart. They'll always be here with you. So again, let's see, did we go through these photos already? All of them? Again, my dad and his dogs, he loved these dogs and his horses. It's my brother Arnold and my dad. My dad was one of the first here in Peñasco in the early days who had enough money to actually buy a car at that time, because you had to work somewhere to get cash so you could buy things. As a farmer, the only way you can make money is sell your crops or sell your animals or something. But as far as actually getting money, a large amount of money, an automobile back in those days, a new one would cost about $300 to $400 in the 30s or 40s. So that's what he did for a living, you know. He loved horses, and he loved doing that job right there. That's him right there in a lake in Wyoming. I really like that shot. So this is not Hollywood, you know. This is not Audie Murphy. This is my dad. And we should all be proud of that, you know. We should all be proud that our parents did great things, lived a good life, good people, worked hard. So, see, I know I'm missing something here. Very important, Henry, Ben. My brothers didn't want to help me out on this, by the way. And I apologize if it's a little broken, but I'm not a great presenter. Friday, I got so emotional that I got all choked up and I couldn't even talk anymore. So bear with me. Do we want to do the last slideshow? Look at all the sheep there in Wyoming, horses. The last set of photographs I want to talk about is just really just go through and highlight some quick stories about my about my dad here. My uncle Cruz, Rosanaldo Cruz, married my aunt Mary. That's my dad's half-brother, Jose Muniz, fought in Germany, in Italy. My brother Ben, who's back there. Again, my brother Don. That's a little one, my tío Ross. That's my tío Manuel, who was a prisoner of war in Germany for 8 months. That's me when I was in the army. At Fort Ord, that's my uncle Jose Muniz in Italy. That's the Abeta, that's Gregorio Abeta. He's related through me through my uncle. Sam and my Juanita, my grandma. That's Cordova, friend of my brother's from Chamizal. Just various, Jerry Vigil. That's the VA compound back then in the 40s there in Albuquerque. That's going quick. My tío Samuel Fresquez, my tío Salomon Fresquez. Anselmo Fresquez, he was in Korea. That's him right there. He's still alive. He lives in Vegas, Nevada. Alfonso Vigil in Australia. Again, these are all family, friends, relatives. Ortega, Rudy Ortega. Oh gosh, I forgot his name. Sorry. My cousin Sam on the left, the young Navy guy. My uncle in Korea. He was in Korea and he swore to God he never wanted to be that cold again. And he's like a little Chihuahua today. He has his long johns on and he's always cold, Got to have the heater up to 85, that kind of thing. That's my dad in the Army. One of the few photos. He didn't stay very long in the Army. I think he got out on a medical or something. Yeah, Sam, my cousin Sam. That's Manuel Fresquez, the one that was in Germany, captured as a POW. That's him again. That's him, civilian clothes. Poor guy. He never talked much about his experience as a POW. He never liked to talk about it. It's too hard on him. My tío Samuel was in North Africa. My dad, and I don't know who that guy is. I think it's a friend of his from here. Anyway, I'd like to end it and just quit boring you people because I need more practice. I know that as I start doing this more and more, I'll get better and better at it. And next time you see me, I'll be like, is that the same guy that was on Mocho and Llorando and all this stuff? So with that, I just want to end it with thank you very much for listening and thanks.